Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. In Bangladesh, at least 52 people have died after a massive fire raged through a factory in Narayanganj, east of Dhaka. Authorities say 50 others are injured and many people are feared to be trapped, so the death toll may rise. The Taliban say they are free to attack administrative centers in Afghanistan as they made no promise to the U.S. to leave them alone. At a news conference in Moscow, Taliban representatives said that they are discussing a possible ceasefire in Kabul. With comments carried by Russian media, the fighters said they will halt their offensive if the Doha talks are successful. Indian troops have martyred another civilian in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This pushes the death toll in the Sundarbani area of Rajouri district to 2. Brazil has reported more than 530,000 deaths from COVID-19 so far, with more than 1,600 logged overnight. South Korea is raising restrictions to the highest level after new daily cases hit a record for a second day. Pakistan has registered 25 more deaths and over 1,700 new cases in the last 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4 million lives and has infected over 185 million others. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. In Bangladesh, at least 52 people have died after a massive fire raged through a factory in Narayanganj, east of Dhaka. Authorities say 50 others are injured and many people are feared to be trapped, so the death toll may rise. Officials say investigation has been launched into the cause of the inferno. A fire department official said highly flammable chemicals and plastics had been stockpiled inside. Emergency services are still battling to put out the fire on the 5th and 6th floors after 24 hours. The Taliban say they are free to attack administrative centers in Afghanistan as they made no promise to the United States to leave them alone. At a news conference in Moscow, Taliban representatives said they are discussing a possible ceasefire with Kabul.
In comments carried by Russian media, the fighters said they will halt their offensive if the Doha talks are successful. The group said it controls over 85% of Afghan territory, but guaranteed that Afghanistan will never be used against other countries. Taliban spokesperson Shahabuddin Dilawar said the captured border crossings are functioning as normal. Meanwhile, Moscow noted that the Taliban currently control more than 2/3 of the Afghan-Tajikistan border. Whereas the World Health Organization says at least 56 civilians have been killed in Afghanistan in the last week alone.
For more on this, we have with us Mr. Lieutenant General Moinuddin Haider, retired, speaking to us from Karachi. Thank you so much for speaking to Indus News. Now, General, the Taliban say they are free to attack administrative centers. What does this predict for Afghanistan's future post-U.S. withdrawal?
Yes, the situation in Afghanistan is very bleak. America is almost pulled out, and Taliban are attacking district after district and trying to bring down the Afghan government. And the Afghan National Army is no match, and they are not standing and fighting hardly at any place, and they are themselves handing over their weapons and equipment and sometimes leaving the area. So this onslaught by Taliban seems to be continuing unabated, and the situation is getting worse.
Now, Lieutenant General, what role is Moscow playing in the peace process in light of Tajikistan's request for assistance from the Russia-led Collective Security Treaty Organization?
Yes, there are countries bordering Afghanistan who are interested that some sort of political solution should take place and a stable government should come on the ground. For this purpose, there was a meeting in Iran in which Indian Foreign Minister also came, and but I don't think this will be decided by these two countries, because China, Russia, many other countries are interested to see stability there. And Tajikistan is one place where Tajiks from Afghanistan, especially from the Afghan National Army, are escaping there. And I think America is slowly transporting them back to America. These are those people who have sided with the Americans as their assistants, as their interpreters, as their collaborators and supporters. So they think their life is in great danger, and that is why they are being facilitated to escape to Tajikistan and finally to U.S., some of them.
General Moinuddin Haider, thank you so much for speaking to us all the way from Karachi. Now moving on, Indian troops have martyred another civilian in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This pushes the death toll in the Sundarbani area of Rajouri district to 2. The occupying troops have now killed 6 civilians in the past 24 hours. They also carried out operations in the Pulwama and Kulgam districts. The authorities have also suspended internet services in these areas. Rights groups say at least 400 Kashmiris have been killed by the Indian military since August 2019. In Haiti, police say a hit squad composed of Colombians and Haitian Americans assassinated President Jovenel Moïse. Police Chief Leon Charles says 17 attackers, including 2 Americans, have been captured. In a briefing, he said 3 assailants were killed and 8 are still on the run. Colombia's government says at least 6 members of the alleged squad appear to be retired members of its military. Colombian Defense Minister Diego Molano also pledged to assist Haiti in its investigation efforts. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department said it could not confirm if any of its citizens had been detained. In a press briefing, spokesperson Ned Price said Washington is responding to a request from Port-au-Prince for investigative assistance. A controversial 2018 law that defines Israel as the nation-state of the only Jewish people has been upheld by the Supreme Court. The court rejected claims by opponents that it discriminates against minorities. The law says fulfilling the right to national self-determination in Israel is unique to the Jewish people. The nation-state law also downgraded Arabic from an official language to one with special status. A Palestinian rights group, Adalah, tried to overturn the law, saying it excludes those who do not belong to the majority. The group said it will continue to work internationally to expose the discriminatory and the racist nature of this law. Brazil's COVID-19 death toll has exceeded 530,000 with more than 1,600 fatalities overnight. South Korea is raising restrictions to the highest level after new daily cases hit a record for a second straight day. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4 million lives and has infected over 185 million others. More in this report.
Surging cases of the highly infectious Indian Delta variant and the return of restrictions are threatening the revival of pandemic-hit global economy. Canada has decided to continue restricting unvaccinated foreign tourists from entering the country, while New Zealand has delayed flights from Australia's New South Wales region after the outbreak in Sydney worsened. Australian authorities have also warned that a 3-week lockdown may be extended as the city reported its biggest rise in cases for the year.
New South Wales is facing the biggest challenge we have faced since the pandemic started. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly. And unless there is a dramatic change, unless there's a dramatic turnaround in the numbers, I can't see how we'd be in a position to ease restrictions by next Friday. And that is why all of us need to work together.
Cuba has claimed its two-shot Soberana 2 vaccine has proven 91.2% effective in late-stage clinical trials. Meanwhile, Pfizer says it plans to ask U.S. regulators to authorize a booster dose of its vaccine over the spread of the Indian Delta variant. But the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention say the fully vaccinated Americans do not need a booster shot at this time. They, however, have warned that the daily COVID-19 cases in America have increased 11% from last week.
We are starting to see some new and concerning trends. Simply put, in areas of low vaccination coverage, cases and hospitalizations are up. Further, we are seeing some small clusters and larger outbreaks of COVID-19 in locations such as camps and community events where proper, hard-learned prevention strategies are not enforced and the virus is readily able to thrive.
The Global Vaccine Distribution Scheme, COVAX, says it aims to deliver 520 million doses to Africa this year. In Russia, Moscow's mayor said the situation is gradually stabilizing in Russia after a surge driven by the Indian strain, but the new daily cases remain high nationwide. Qatar, meanwhile, has announced to resume issuing visas to foreigners in line with the new travel and return policies.
In Pakistan, COVID-19 has claimed 25 more lives overnight. The health ministry says the death toll has reached 22,520. The ministry said the virus infected more than 1,700 people overnight. The caseload has crossed 969,000, while more than 911,000 people have recovered. The ministry said there are over 35,000 active cases, of which more than 1,900 are critical. Meanwhile, over 19 million vaccine doses have been administered in the country so far. At least 10 people have died after a windstorm leveled scores of houses in Gambia's western districts. The National Disaster Management Authority said more than 1,500 people have been displaced. Entire families wandered around the outskirts of the capital, Banjul, in search of shelter. The heavy winds, rain, and flooding also damaged utility infrastructure. Many of the African nation's coastal urban areas remain without electricity or running water in the aftermath of the storm. The UN Security Council has backed African Union mediation efforts between Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan. It urged the parties to resume talks in a dispute over the operation of the giant hydropower dam on the Blue Nile. It is an open session in the United States, which called for urgently resuming the talks under the leadership of the African Union. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield asserted that the bloc is the most appropriate venue to address this dispute. Egypt and Sudan have both called on the Security Council to help resolve the dispute, but Addis Ababa is opposed to any Security Council involvement and wants the AU to lead instead. Pakistan is marking the 54th death anniversary of the mother of the nation, Fatima Jinnah. She was the younger sister of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan. A dentist by profession, Jinnah joined the struggle for a separate Muslim homeland. She was one of the leading founders of the freedom movement. Jinnah played an active role in making the dream of a new country, Pakistan, a reality. In a statement, Pakistan's foreign ministry paid tribute for her passionate support of civil rights, while Rights Minister Shirin Mazari called her an icon and a role model for women. The Lady of Pakistan died in 1967 due to a heart attack and was buried beside her brother's grave in Karachi. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A UN rapporteur has called for open dialogue between the Belgium government and migrants on hunger strike. Hundreds of migrants are on a hunger strike for 7 weeks in an attempt to force authorities to give them the right to work. UN Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, Oliver de Schutter, met with strikers in a Brussels church. Schutter hoped that the government could provide migrants with a temporary right to work. He noted that authorities could establish a mechanism to allow permanent work to those who are integrated into the community. Migrants say there are multiple applications for the right to remain in the country have been turned down. The Belgian government says it won't issue blanket permission to work outside the current migration rules. The streets of New York City are flooded. The tropical storm Elsa hits the East Coast. Heavy rainfall and thunderstorms left roads and subway stations inundated by water. The National Hurricane Center says Elsa is expected to weaken to a post-tropical cyclone by Friday night. Up to 4 inches of rain is expected in parts of North Carolina, with isolated totals of up to 6 inches. The Weather Service has forecasted possible tornadoes in the eastern Carolinas and southeastern Virginia. Tropical storm warnings are in effect in parts of the East Coast as far as north as Massachusetts. Buckingham Palace has opened its garden to visitors, allowing them to publicly explore Queen Elizabeth's official residence for the first time. In the heart of London, people will be able to walk through the 39-acre garden until September. Wardens will be on hand to provide talks, while arts and craft activities will be available for children. Guests will also have the rare opportunity to picnic on one of the lawns as part of their visit. The garden's landscape dates back to the 1820s, when King George IV converted Buckingham House into a palace. There are more than 1,000 trees on the site and 320 different wildflowers and grasses. In Croatia, a sculptor dedicates his time to tracing enormous geometrical sand artworks that last only while the tide is out. More about his disappearing art in this report.
Every year at the Zen Opazin Art Festival in Croatia, Nikola Fowler draws patterns in the sands of the Neretva River Delta. He says the opportunities for creativity never end, as the next day a new surface is available to draw on when the waves recede. Fowler says his inspiration comes from different traditions with sacred geometry.
I was drawing here when the tide receded. I have 3.5 hours at my disposal now that the tide is coming. I made circles. My inspiration comes from the traditions of sacred geometry around the world, the Christian, Buddhist, Hindu ones. There are plenty of ideas, but time is limited.
The artist plans to organize his own sand art festival on the Neretva River Delta, dedicated to temporary artwork.
Sandwriting is very easy to do. Anyone can do it. We plan to include children in the fall. We will launch a separate festival that will be based only on sand, the Sand Art Neretva. It will be in September at full moon.
Zen Opazin Festival Director Ivan Anchet said Fowler delights attendees with his work every year. The art festival includes music, mural paintings and workshops for children, with artists participating from across Europe.
A trove of love letters that American poet Sylvia Plath wrote to her British husband, fellow poet Ted Hughes, is up for auction at Sotheby's.
Plath and Hughes married in 1956, and their relationship was as tumultuous as it was passionate. Her letters to Hughes explore her agony of separation from him while she was studying at Cambridge. The sale comprises 55 lots and comes directly from the collection of Sylvia's daughter, Frida Hughes.
So we're very privileged to be offering a collection of material from Sylvia Plath, coming from her daughter, Frida Hughes, including the wonderful love letters written by her to her husband.
The sale also includes a deck of tarot cards given to Plath by Hughes for her birthday and a striking ink portrait drawn by Plath during the couple's honeymoon in Ben Durham.
We have published estimates for the various items, so the photograph album is estimated at £30,000 to £50,000, for example. But these are such unique items that it is very hard to predict how the bidding will go, and we think that there will be very strong interest. And
their wedding rings, family recipes and photo albums are also part of the auction. The items will be sold at Sotheby's in London from July 9 to 21.
While haute couture has seen the return of in-person shows as lockdown restrictions ease in France, some brands like Fendi have adopted 4 digital presentations. More in this report.
Italian fashion house Fendi used soft colors and played with stone-like illusions for its haute couture collection. Designer Kim Jones said he looked to late Italian film director Pier Paolo Pasolini's depictions of Rome for inspiration. He presented the line digitally with a film by Italian director Luca Guadagnino. Models including Kate Moss and her daughter Lila Grace wore embroidered dresses, satin marble-like gowns, embellished jackets, and mosaic-like designs. The British designer stuck to a mainly neutral color palette, showing plenty of white, cream, and different shades of brown. Jones, also at the helm of men's wear at French fashion house Dior, is artistic director for women's wear and couture at Fendi, part of luxury conglomerate LVMH.
The European Union says the UK is liable to pay it $56.2 billion as part of its post-Brexit settlement. The EU's consolidated budget report for 2020 says the money is owed under a series of articles. The report read an initial amount of $8.04 billion is due for payment in 2021, with the remainder to be paid later. The $56.2 billion amount is significantly higher than expected. The UK's Office for Budget Responsibility predicted that the bill would amount to $49 billion. The tension between the two sides has mounted over trade arrangements for Northern Ireland, particularly for chilled meats. Amazon has closed 340 online stores operated by one of its largest Chinese realtors in the first half of this year. Shenzhen-listed parent Tiza Information Industry estimated the retailer's sales this year to be reduced by 40 to 60%. Tiz said stores run by Shenzhen UTC Technology were shut down for allegedly violating Amazon's rule. It said the affected stores made up of 30% of Yushuku's total retail presence on the platform. In its filing, the company said more than $20 million of Yushu's funds have been frozen. The crackdown affected products with the tag Made in China sold on Amazon. Most shares in the Asia-Pacific have fallen as COVID-19 worries due to the Delta variant resurface in the region. Seoul's Kospi and the ASX 200 in Australia have fallen nearly 1%. Japan's Nikkei 225 has also dipped over 0.5%. Stocks in mainland China have slipped fractionally. However, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has gained close to 1%. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.